Your thoughts are the blueprint for your life. Not every single blueprint is built to last. There are thought patterns that just feel so normal, they're really automatic that you don't even realize that they're holding you back. These aren't the typical, negative self-talk or perfectionism patterns that you've heard 100 times. They're really subtle, often invisible traps that quietly sabotage your growth and potential. So today, I want to expose you to four potential damaging hidden thought patterns that you probably haven't thought about. And I'll kind of tell you why they may undermine your progress without you even noticing. The first one is this thing called a narrative addiction. This narrative addiction is the need to create stories about everything. And what it is it's this compulsion to explain everything that happens in your life through a story. It's kind of when your brain creates meaning or causation when there might only be randomness or coincidence, right? So it's given that there are coincidences and randomness and moments of spontaneity and chaos in the world, trying to understand that is almost like trying to take down a brick wall with a feather. It's very difficult, and you need a heavier weapon if you're going to understand chaos and randomness or coincidences, right? So the trap is something like this. You text someone and they don't respond. Why didn't they respond to my text? Oh, it must mean they're upset with me. No, they just didn't respond to your text, right? I didn't get the promotion at my job. It's because my boss doesn't like me, right? It's the creating a narrative behind something that just is. And it's harmful because it reinforces negative belief. These self-created stories often lead to worst case scenarios, which solidify limiting belief. They may limit objectivity, right? By attaching meaning to every freaking event, you lose the ability to see situations for what they truly are. It also creates this unnecessary emotional baggage, constantly assigning meaning to neutral events. It drains your energy, your mental energy. It heightens your stress. That's the last thing you need. And here's how it operates. It's your brain's need for patterns. Our brains are freaking hardwired to seek patterns and causation. This evolutionary trap, or not even a trap, is a trait. It helped our ancestors survive. But in modern time, it doesn't really help us survive. It seems to be the reason why a lot of us are desolate and are anxious and we overthink and there are false conclusions, right? Back then, it played a role. And why did it play a role back then? And why was it so important back then? Well, this whole idea of looking for a problem was because it was unknown to them. They're like, why did a tiger just leap out and kill brother Khan? Why is the sun setting and how long does the sun set for? Why is the moon going up now? What is that? They don't know anything. They're our ancestors, for crying out loud. They were here before us. Before all the beautiful pieces of information in the library and the storage house and the rooms of knowledge. They didn't have that. They just had shamanic wisdom. They're like, oh, well, my daddy taught me this and my grandfather did this and we did this and it made sense. And so they needed that. They needed to create a narrative and say, well, why? But now what happens is when we create a why, it's no longer why predicated on let's find a solution. It's why because worst case scenario, this and this and this. So what you can do about this is you can separate facts from stories. You need to train yourself and ask, well, what actually happened here? What story am I creating about this? Am I upset because my friend didn't text me back? And if I'm upset, why am I creating the story that my friend doesn't like me? What if my friend's just busy? Oh, this is usually around the time my friend grocery shops. Right? Example. Here's a quick example. Instead of thinking, they didn't respond to my text, so they must be angry. Just go, they didn't respond to my text. And that's simply the only fact I know now. They didn't respond. I don't know why, but it seems to be apparent that this is what it is. And I just don't know anything further, so it is what it is. I mean, the whole idea of stoicism is to not be affected by this. Stoicism teaches us that we suffer more in imagination than we do in reality. When you detach from these invented narratives, you free yourself of these chains that imagination does. I mean, imagination, everything has a polar opposite, a good and a bad. Imagination, visualization is great for seeing a future that you don't have and dreaming that and bringing that into reality. And it's also dangerous because you dream of a reality, or you dream and you create a reality that never will be. And you suffer. And so when you can just detach, you free yourself of the suffering. Second one, it's called the productivity paranoia. And what it is you measure self-worth by constant output. Here's what it is. This thought pattern equates your value as a person with how much you produce or achieve in a given day, or just in general. It convinces you that rest is laziness, downtime is wasted, and worth is measured in tasks completed. What is the trap? Trap goes something like this. I'm constantly working, and if I'm not, I'm falling behind. I don't deserve to relax until I achieved X. Why am I a fan of this? But why is it dangerous? One, I'm a fan of this because we have the capacity to, so we should go. I'm not a fan of this because we should go. But I am a fan of acknowledging that it's damaging, because then you just forget to live a little bit. Man, I mean, some people's heart is in the work, right? They just want to work. They just want to keep going. They want to keep creating. They want to keep going. That's them. But you don't have to create this thing to where your value depletes when you don't have that, right? And my argument for this is, if everything was ripped away from you, let's say there's a person that his heart is in the work and all he wants to do is work, what would happen if we rip everything away from him? His work, his money, everything. If we rip that away from him, his money, his accolades, his businesses, his companies, his achievements, rip it all. How famous he is, now what? Now what does he use to define him? What gives him value? Right? So that's why I'm kind of a fan of this, right? And it's harmful. I mean, one, you experience burnout, push yourself to exhaustion, and it's because you believe rest is some sort of a luxury that you just can't afford, which is incredibly silly. I mean, loss of identity. Over time, you forget who you are on the outside. Like, outside of your achievements, you forget who the heck you are. So you predicate everything on achievements. That's your value. And if you don't achieve, you're nothing. You're no one. And it's great for going, but damn. That's not all there is. And then sometimes it creates a short-term focus. Not all the time, but sometimes. Where constant output often, not all the time, but often prioritizes quantity over quality, which means you leave little room for creativity, innovation, or deep thinking because you just want to go and go and go and go. So how does this come into effect? Why is it here? In hustle culture, rest is framed as weak. What social media does is it reinforces this by glorifying overworking, making you feel like you're not doing enough. There is a balance. How do you have this balance? You redefine productivity. True productivity isn't doing more, it's doing what matters. Are you being effective or busy? What is productivity? It's not doing everything. It's not waking up at this morning routine, cold shower, cold plunge, sauna, steam room. No, it's what it is what am I doing and what do I need to do to achieve the desired goal? Identify desired goal. Everything you need to do is part of being productive. If your desired goal is to become extremely smart, but what you're doing is never reading and you're doing anything but reading, I'd say maybe you're not being productive. If your desired goal is to get in shape, but all you do is read books on how to get in shape, I'd say you're not being that productive. If your desired goal is to be famous, but you're scared to speak to a camera, I'd say you're not being that productive. Even if you're training and waking up and you have the morning routine, you're doing nothing to help you achieve the desired goal. So, what you can do is just embrace rest. That's a great strategy. I mean, first of all, research shows us that rest and downtime, it enhances creativity and problem solving. Recognize it as a strategic rest. That's part of the growth process, not a break from it. And I'm not encouraging you to just take your foot off the pedal. There are seasons where you have to go, where you have to grind, where you have to hustle, where you have to study, where you have to do all this. And there are seasons where you can just coast. I mean, it's downhill. What person is going downhill and is pressing on the pedal? We press on the pedal so that we gain leverage so that we can go downhill and we just coast. No need to use up any more gas. Sometimes you need to know, are you going uphill? Are you fighting an uphill battle? Are you coasting downhill? Are you going straight? Where are you at in life? There's this Taoist principle that goes, it's called effortless action, which teaches that forcing outcomes often creates resistance, while flowing with just the natural rhythm leads to sustainable success, and we quickly access it. Not even quickly access it, but it flows to us naturally. So don't force an outcome. Let it flow. And what does that look like, bro? It looks like this. Instead of trying to figure out how to make $1 million overnight, just begin the journey and try to become someone that's worthy of having that money and not screwing up their life. As you embark on that process, you transform and you start to flow. Everything naturally just warps. Third one, there's this thing called the emotion labeling bias, where you misinterpret your feelings. This one's pretty important, and I've done it before in my past. What it is this pattern occurs when you mislabel or you misunderstand your emotions. It leads you to inaccurate conclusions about what you experience. For example, you might label excitement as anxiety, sadness as failure. This simply distorts how you respond to the situation. So something like this: I feel nervous, so I'm not ready. I feel low, so I must be failing. Was like, there's what we feel, and it's like, what is this? We don't have a clear label of what it is, and we label it the wrong thing. It's harmful, extremely harmful, because overreaction to normal feeling means it turns everyday stresses into perceived crises or crisis. Like, we don't need that. It also is something that helps us avoid growth opportunities. If you, for example, mistake nervousness for a warning sign, what that can do is cause you to avoid challenges that lead to growth. I mean, nervousness is part of embarking on every journey. It's acknowledgement of the unknown. It's acknowledgement of the unexplored, the unfamiliar. That's why we're nervous, because we don't know. I mean, we have an anxiety-driven brain to look and scan for threats so that we can survive another day. That's why we're nervous. It's not that we're not prepared or that we're not ready. It's that we just don't know. Also, when you mislabel emotions, you amplify their intensity because your brain reacts based on the label you assign. If I am angry and I label it as I hate the world, I'm going to hate the world. If I'm angry and I just say, well, the world, or I may have experienced something that's not pleasant, but I don't hate the world, then my brain will react based on that. So how does this work? Your brain has emotion shortcuts. Emotions are freaking complex beyond your capabilities of understanding. Mine too. Emotions are extremely complex, but your brain often seeks shortcuts by assigning simple labels. Like, okay, it's part of a solution finding brain, right? Our brain's trying to find a solution. So it's like, okay, a shortcut is just assign it something so we know what this is. This leads to errors, especially if you've been conditioned to see certain emotions like nervousness as negative or vulnerability as weakness, right? Our brain needs a solution. It's feeling something. We feel the emotion. We don't know how to interpret this emotion, so we attach a label. So now we have an interpretation so that we can process the interpretation, internalize it, and react accordingly. That's kind of how it works. So if you aren't careful in this process of attaching a label, interpreting it, and reacting to it, you can do the wrong thing. So we can do something called emotional granularity. Granularity. Hopefully I said the word right. Which is the ability to identify emotions with precision. Instead of saying, I'm stressed, just ask, am I feeling overwhelmed, challenged, or excited? What am I doing? Every single label has a different implication. I like this idea from Buddhism, which Buddhism teaches us that emotions are similar to passing clouds, temporary and constantly changing. When you recognize this impermanence, it can just help you detach from these overly intense reactions. because they're going to pass. Everything will pass. And then, fourth one is conditional worth thinking, where you tie your value to external factors. I've been there and I'm still in here, which is why I'm making a video on it. Hopefully you just get out of this sooner than me. What this thought pattern convinces us is that our worth is conditional and it's predicated on meeting certain standards, often set by society, family, even yourself. You believe that you're only valuable if you're successful, if you're attractive, or if you meet external benchmarks. For example, if I fail at this, it means I'm a failure. I'm only lovable if I achieve X, Y, and Z, or if I look a certain way. It's freaking harmful. Your self-worth becomes entirely dependent on external validation. It makes you vulnerable to criticism or failure. Your self-esteem is fragile now. You get this chronic dissatisfaction. Even when you achieve your goals, the satisfaction is fleeting because your worth is tied to ever-moving benchmarks. You create this emotional dependence. You rely on other people's opinions to feel good about yourself. You lose autonomy over your emotions. I mean, it operates because social media and societal pressures, it fuels this pattern. It creates this unrealistic standard of what it means to be enough. I have this. Ever since I was a kid. As a man, it's like, hey, step one, get money. Society is like, you're nothing as a man if you don't have money. And sometimes there were moments where I didn't have money, where I'm like, dude, I'm nothing. Like, no one's going to love me. No one's going to look at me as a human and care. I'm worthless. I have no money. Can't give you anything in this world. I'm nothing. And I felt terrible, man. And it was so hard to reprogram that and adjust the programming. And to this day, I'm still fighting with that. And I feel like if I don't become someone, if I don't, and well, I'm constantly fighting with it because I understand that if all this is ripped away from me, I am just a vessel. I'll return back to dirt and dust. So I know that it's more than just these tangible things, these accomplishments, the cars, the clothes, the money, the dollar amount, the accolades. It's more than that. I know that, but I'm wrestling with it because society, my parents, my family members, everyone around me it's programmed that into my mind at an early age. And I mean, I've had moments where I didn't have money, for crying out loud. And it was difficult. And I've had moments where I'd wonder if some of the ladies I were with would even be with me if I didn't have anything. Like, would you stick around if I was sleeping under a bridge? Like, do you feel my heart, my soul, my spirit? Or is it predicated on a life? And obviously, well, we want a lavish life. I mean, that's why we want money. But how much is enough? When do we ever stop? And so this is really difficult. And I hope you guys really harp on this last one, where you need to recognize your value as a person. And that's all intrinsic. It's not tied to what you do or how you look. It's your heart, it's your soul, it's your spirit. You got to say, like, I'm worthy of love and respect, regardless of your external successes or failures. Like, you really are. I mean, existentialism teaches us that worth comes from authentic existence, not societal standards. You define your own values. You choose how to live and how to act. That one's a huge one, man. We always fall into this trap of meeting standards. Some people give up on the standards and they just become free. And I argue those people are more free than people that are still trying to meet the standards given to them by society. And well, the only thing that helps me is I tell myself, all I want to do is squeeze every last drip of potential out of me to see what I'm made of as a human. The thing that's helping me transition out of I'm worthless if I don't have anything is maybe I'm not, but I still want it because I want to squeeze every last drip of potential out of me. And what happens as I do so is the cherry on top is I just acquire it, which makes me feel better. Because I would feel a lot better if I had it than if I didn't. But again, if it was stripped away from me, it's like, whatever. It's been stripped away from me before. Wouldn't be the first time, right? So all that to say, those are 4 frameworks that not a lot of people think about. Because some people just talk about, well, avoid being comfortable and this. And that's fine. Those are good frameworks too. But I think a lot of these are automatic, autonomous, and they just happen naturally. And they really hinder us. So those are 4 frameworks and habits that I think if you have those type of patterns, just get rid of them and you'll be a whole lot better for it. You have to ask yourself which of those patterns resonated with you. And I'm curious. I mean, tell me in the damn comments so I can read it. I still read you guys' comments and talk to you guys. So tell me which of these thought patterns speak to you, if any, at all. That's all I got. Take care.